if somebody is lying about being a victim or survivor to get attention for whatever reason,
that wouldn't make any sense. Why would someone do that?
It takes away, well, because they want attention, but it takes away
Why would
real
Chris,
attention.
no,
Let me finish.
no woman wants attention.
Welcome back to another episode of Have a Seat with Chris Hansen. I'm Chris Hansen, tonight with a very special collaboration again with West Most. From Jussie Smollett to self-proclaimed supermom Sherry Papini, whose story we covered right here on Have a Seat with Chris Hansen, the number of false victims being called out and brought to justice is startling. But what should the penalty be for someone when they do this? Jessi, some of the story doesn't make sense.
Okay, well,
and this let me finish, and this would be a good time for you to come clean on. Before we can answer that question, we need to go back to August 2020 when I first interviewed Coco Berthman. Here is True Crime Stories West Most.
Her story reads like a Hollywood script, and for a while, it almost was. 28-year-old Coco Berthman was the darling of the inspirational speaking circuit. Originally born Sandra Renata Ruff in Germany, you wouldn't know it from looking at her, but she had overcome some of the worst abuse imaginable.
My name is Coco Berthman, and statistically I should not be speaking to you. Statistically, I should be a drug addict, a prostitute. Statistically, I should be dead.
On August 8th, 2020, she had a seat with Chris Hansen, and as Chris put it, she had quite a story to tell.
Coco is 26 years old, but was essentially born into human trafficking conducted by her own family in Germany. Escaped at 15 to the United States, now lives here and is attending college classes. Coco, there's so much to this story, I almost don't know where to begin.
But as you mentioned, I was born into trafficking and hidden in plain sight.
Coco was a victim of trafficking and SA from the time of birth until the age of 15 years old, sold over and over again by her mother.
While other children grew up with monsters under their bed, I had to grow up with the monsters in my bed. The torture that I endured varied. On some days, nothing really happened, and on others, I was raped 10 to 50 times a day.
In 2018, while living in the US, Coco first found the strength to tell her tragic story. In that original email to a friend, Coco said she was being abused by her mother's boyfriend, and her mother was completely unaware.
We really seemed like a normal family. We were living in normal neighborhoods. And the only odd thing about us was that we moved at least once a year. So I was in 16 different schools before the age of 14.
16 different schools before the age of 14.
Mm-hmm.
Coco went to the police. The boyfriend was arrested, but was later released without charge. Not long after, 15-year-old Coco made the decision to run away. She left home, finished high school, moved to the US, and the rest was history. Or at least, one version of history. By the time she sat down with Chris on August 8th, 2020, Coco's story had changed a great deal. Her mother, Renata, who in her original fiction was unaware of any abuse, was now not just aware, but she was the driving force behind these transactions.
When you say that you were trafficked by your own family, was this your mother?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my mother was my main trafficker. Yeah, I remember people coming to our home and taking me to my room to abuse me, and then had interactions afterwards with my mother and exchanging money. These were people, you know, we interact with on a daily basis. So lawyers, doctors, police officers, teachers.
The story of her escape also became more fantastic. Instead of making that decision on a spur-of-the-moment impulse at 15, Coco said she knew at 12 she would need to get away, for a much more dire reason.
What finally led to you getting the courage to escape at the age of 15 years old?
That is a story in itself. At age 12, I had to witness my sister being murdered.
As best as you can remember and are comfortable talking about it, what happened to your sister?
She was stabbed to death.
By?
By people my mother was connected to.
Over the next 3 years, Coco would methodically plan her escape, finding a children's clinic across Germany where she could hide. According to Coco, November 2nd, 2009 was the last time she ever saw or heard from her family.
Literally in the middle of the night of November 2nd in 2009, running away from home with a backpack onto the train. And then after what happened with the police and finally getting a restraining order, I decided that I wanted to go to high school. One of my biggest dreams was to be the first to graduate high school for my family.
She would spend 6 months allegedly recovering at the children's clinic before moving into her own state-funded apartment.
But you're living in an apartment on your own at 16, going to high school. How did you support yourself? I mean, how does that even work?
So I went to school in the morning and I worked at night, and I got a little bit support from the government.
At 16 years old,
mm-hmm.
And you're paying rent in an apartment on your own,
mm-hmm.
working and going to high school.
This should have been her happy ending. Instead, it was the start of another nightmare. 16 and on her own, Coco fell victim to an unlikely predator, her therapist.
So I decided...
Wait, just hold there for a second. So you went to therapy and your therapist ended up being your abuser at 16.
Mm-hmm. It's much longer of a process than overnight, obviously, and there
was grooming there.
Yeah, exactly. And so he lured me. He never trafficked me. So what happened initially is...
But he took advantage. He groomed you into a situation knowing that you were a trauma victim, a victim of sexual assault, trafficking, child pornography, being abused in the most foul, abhorrent way. And this therapist grooms you into a sexual relationship at 16.
After a period of grooming, he would keep her locked in his basement, sometimes for months at a time. Coco saw only one way out. And 5 years after her daring escape from trafficking, she tried to end her own life. Yeah, went on for over 2 years. And I escaped that situation at 18 in November of 2013 by attempting suicide. And I went to the forest with a bottle of wine and downed all those. And I passed out. And so from what was told to me after is that I was fortunately found by a dog and its owner. And they started performing CPR, calling the ambulance, and I was rushed to the hospital. And I was in the coma for a week, but I survived, and luckily, and I'm really, really grateful.
How did you get from that hospital, Coco, after the suicide attempt to the United States? How did that come about?
So after I woke up and after, I came back to my senses, I testified, and that therapist was convicted. And
so the therapist did go to prison?
Yes. And so after, he was actually charged not guilty for reason of mental disease, but he was locked away into a mental hospital.
With her abuser locked away, Coco would return to high school, graduating at the age of 21. By 2017, she had made her way to the US and settled in Utah, converting to Mormonism along the way. In 2019, just 10 years after her alleged escape from familial trafficking, Coco was a fixture in her community, evidenced by this bash thrown in her honor to celebrate her decade of freedom. There was even talk of turning her inspirational tale into a movie.
Ever since I decided to, be brave enough and, show some vulnerability, I have been connected with the most amazing survivors who work tirelessly to fight this. Organizations that try to bring more awareness and do rescue missions, and people who risk their lives to make a difference. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at now.
That's not how the story ended, though. Just a year after this interview, investigative reporter Lynn Kenneth Packer found and interviewed Coco's mother, Renata Ruff. Renata had successfully sued Coco in Germany for criminal defamation, and she was begging publications and organizations to stop printing and reporting on the malicious lie Coco was spreading. Renata provided a stack of evidence that proves Coco's tales were completely fabricated. Now, there was a lot covered in Lynn's expose uploaded in 2021, but here are the more glaring points. Coco said she never saw her family after running away in 2009.
And do you know where your mother is today?
I do not.
Your siblings?
I
Surviving
do not.
siblings?
No.
But here she is in 2015 at the airport, ready for her big move to the US. The person she has seen hugging? Her mother. Coco claimed her older sister Anna was murdered when she was 12. Coco does have an older half-sister, but her name is Magdalena, and she is very much alive and well in Germany. 2017, another picture. This one in New York, where Renata, her boyfriend, and Coco are enjoying family time together. This is a full 8 years after Coco claimed to have fled, never to speak to her family again. Lastly, that therapist who abused and used Coco from the ages of 16 to 18, the one who was found not guilty by reason of mental instability, he simply does not and has never existed. The same goes for her apartment, the suicide attempt, the week-long coma, all of it. This expose went live on August 2nd, 2021 with little fanfare, but 6 months later, that video would finally out Coco. In January 2022, Berthman would tell friend Amy Bowler that she had stage 3 lymphoma cancer. Bowler quickly started a GoFundMe in Coco's name to pay for the expensive treatment she would need to beat cancer. The plea for help spread quickly, and the GoFundMe raised over $10,000 in just a little over a month, with even more money coming directly via Cash App and PayPal donations. Coco would go on Instagram Live and discuss her health, her diagnosis, and her odds of living.
There is an alternative treatment option that is much more holistically that I'm considering very seriously. My friend Dara Rhodes from the Detox Cottage in San Diego has reached out, and she's gonna help me, and I'm gonna start a very strict nutritional cancer fighting plan. I'm removing all the toxins. I'm very proactive and very fatigued. I'm very, very tired very easily. I get tired really quick. Aching. And then I have pain in the areas where they found the masses. And in my lower back I have pain. But the doctor said that with treatment they gave me 30% chance to live 2 to 5 years, and without 1 to 2 years. And I refuse to die.
But that's when a ghost from Coco's past came across the GoFundMe and was immediately suspicious. Berthman had lived with her years earlier when the family hosted Coco in their Utah home, and she recalled Coco had a long history of wild claims and false illnesses. Not long after moving in, Coco told her new host that she was sexually assaulted by a group of homeless men in Vegas while doing charity work. The family believed her. But over time, the stories became more and more grandiose. By week 4, Coco began sharing her trafficking story. Said her brother passed away from an overdose. She spoke of watching her sister murdered in front of her. The family was skeptical that so much could happen to one person, as were Mormon bishops in both Nevada and Utah. But without proof, there was nothing they can do. At one point, the family hosted a newcomer to their home, a young man with lung cancer who was given 6 months to live. He got a lot of attention, something Coco definitely would have noticed.
And I guess welcome to my cancer journey. Cancer picked the wrong kind of girl.
The GoFundMe was a smoking gun Coco's former host needed to put it all together in 2022. She shared her suspicions with the police, and while the process was slow going, that call changed everything. Further digging proved the diagnosis, the specialists, the treatment centers, the pain, it was all a massive lie.
And if you have any tips, send them my way. If you feel, I don't know, I feel bad for asking, but if you feel called to help in any like financial way, my friend started a GoFundMe. There is a link. Most of the alternative treatments are obviously not covered by insurance, but yeah, I'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Her GoFundMe scam wasn't just immoral, though. It was illegal. A second-degree felony for communications fraud, and will likely lead to time in prison. The damage she caused to survivors, her family, the organizations, friends, and supporters who worked tirelessly to acknowledge accomplishments she never achieved is immeasurable.
What do you want people to know most about your story?
This is not about me. I am safe and I'm happy and I'm healthy. But this is about all those who are still out there.
It's funny. The person who claimed it was never about her has proven time and time again that the only person Coco Birthman truly cares about is Coco Birthman.
But you better believe homegirl is not gonna die. Not anytime soon. Because I have still some dreams that need to be fulfilled.
Courage, don't you dare to fail me now.
Update. As of September 2022, 7 months after her arrest for fraud, Coco has listed herself as a COO for a service dog nonprofit located in Utah. The owner adamantly denies Coco is in any way a paid employee, but Cash App receipts provided by an anonymous source may prove otherwise. Some people insist on learning the hard way. Speaking of learning the hard way, let's fast forward to August 2022.
Hello.
Hi, Jessi. It's Chris. How are you?
I will be better after this.
Yeah?
Jessi is 28, lives with her parents, and works part-time at Instacart. Her fledgling YouTube channel has just over 600 subscribers, many earned during her time doing X-rated live streams on YouTube. Having a small subscriber count doesn't diminish the serious impact her actions have had on so many people. She's committed harassment, both sexual and non-sexual, doxxing, defamation, and extortion, just to name a few. The number next to your name shouldn't be a deciding factor in anything, and you deserve to be warned about Jessi now, so you don't learn the hard way later. This is Jessi's story.
You ready to go?
Yeah.
Jessi, how did you first get involved in the TCAP community?
For most people, being chased out of multiple communities for problematic behavior would be enough to walk away from social media, would be enough to delete their YouTube channel, would be a wake-up call, a sign that you need some help. But Jessi is not like most people. By summer 2022, Jessi had already been exposed for sending nude photos to an alleged minor just to prove she wasn't fat.
Like, they say I'm fat, and then I sent, there's nudes of me out there, and you can see that I'm not fat. So it's like, Tony Danza, no, I didn't know that Theo was calling me fat. And so I sent him a picture like of me naked, and I said, see, I'm not fat. And he never responded back to me saying, oh, I'm a child. I just found out today. So that's kind of fucking different. But he was calling me fat, and I just wanted to show him that I just want to show people that I'm not fat. That's all.
She was run from a community she was once a moderator for after mocking the death of a community member's husband, and had channels dedicated to exposing her appalling behavior.
Green flag, you make fun of people.
But even that wasn't enough to warrant her expulsion from the platform. Instead, she got even worse, and would even go on to post a sketchy GoFundMe of her own. But suspect GoFundMes are hardly the only similarity between Coco Berthman and Jessi. They both sat down with Chris Hansen to tell their stories, but Coco had a seat before she was exposed. Jessi demanded her place on the hot seat after she was already outed, her shroud of lies worn away to tatters.
And what do you do now, Jessi, in terms of your creation of content and your presence? What's your goal? What do you do now?
On YouTube, I will be doing skits, making music, just some parodies.
There is another thing that Coco and Jessi have in common: a long history of false claims, slander, and defamatory statements against detractors, critics, and anyone who crossed her.
You falsely accused content creators of being predators and pedophiles.
Berthman and Jessi would learn that some lies, lines, and people should never be crossed, and sometimes they carry real-world repercussions.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think what bothers me the most about this is it's not just the falsity of what she's alleged and stirring up the controversy and using up resources and damaging people's reputation, perhaps permanently, but it's also the fact that she's extorting people.
While she was around YouTube for a number of years, Jessi flew mostly under the radar until 2021, when she was part of AZ's community on her T-Spiracy channel.
Jessi was probably a moderator for me for probably I want to say 9 months or so, but she's been a part of the community since before that, and unfortunately after.
According to AZ, while Jessi was a little quirky, she wouldn't call her problematic. All of that changed, however, when AZ took Jessi's moderator wrench after months of increasingly bizarre and unhinged behaviors.
She's probably one of the only people I've had to just take the wrench away from, which was not fun to do to begin with, but I think that wrench meant more to her than she's willing to admit, and it was really a really sad day because I was covering Gabby Petito daily for a while, and she was in my streams, and she started offering 1-800-Sandals vacations to my live chat. And that was kind of a problem because we were covering Gabby Petito, and that was a serious subject. And here I have a moderator who is telling people to call 1-800-Sandals vacation. So that was the first red flag.
Jessi took losing her mod status well, for about 5 minutes. Then all hell broke loose, and Jessi began to lash out.
And at first she said sorry, right? And then I want to say 20 minutes later, she started hitting me up, telling me that I was the one that was going to be sorry for taking her wrench away, and that I can't take a joke. And everybody was telling her I'm the one with the problem. And it completely went upside down and inside out, quickly.
In an instant, AZ went from a friend to foe in Jessi's eyes, and she would spend the next few months attacking her.
She's accused me of relapsing. She's accused me of harassing her. She's accused me of sending her threatening messages. She's actually falsified a bunch of DMs between us, trying to make me look like the bad guy, which I easily debunked.
That shady GoFundMe Jessi posted in January of 2022, it was to help her fight what she called a conspiracy led by AZ and her followers.
Then she created a GoFundMe so she could get a restraining order against me, and she needed $600. So
it wasn't clear what the money would be used on.
It said if I don't get the restraining order, then I'm just gonna pay my bills with it. It said something about buying lunch every day.
And there was no proof provided. But what was clear was that Jessi would stop at nothing to discredit AZ.
It is always accusations. She has never showed proof of anything. The one time she did, it was fake screenshots, like I said, and I debunked her like immediately, and she never used them again. So no, nothing. She tells everybody that I raked in a bunch of money from Gabby Petito. I had a fundraiser according to her, and I was supposed to give it to Gabby Petito Foundation, and I just kept it all. And she even has a dollar amount, okay? I never had a fundraiser, ever. She gets this $4,000 number. I don't know where she gets it from, and she tells everybody that I pocketed the money.
What Jessi fails to realize is that these claims are illegal. Jessi may want to believe her false defamatory statements are harmless quips, as she tries to excuse her behavior behind trolling. But according to defamation attorneys Dan Warner and Raiz Muhammad of RM Warner Law, she is opening herself up to a number of potential consequences, something a woman nearing 30 should understand.
When she makes an allegation like this, which she does clearly for attention and views and clicks and drama, it can stick. It can damage somebody's reputation.
There's a higher standard, and you have to prove malice, which is basically the person knew what they were saying was false, or they had a really good idea that it was false, but they just said it anyway.
It's really disgusting that somebody, it's a criminal mind. And in terms of the recourse, we're going with reputational harm first, but there may be more than that. There may be significantly more. There could be a malicious prosecution claim. There could be a false light claim. There could be a lot.
Lying, defamation, slander, libel, and possible fraud are one thing, but Jessi was also constantly being called out for her overly sexual content and behavior.
I think she needs help, and I think she needs to stop the behavior and just be done with it. She needs to just stop. That's it. Stop. But I don't think she can, and I don't know how to get through to her to do that.
Her non-age restricted live streams may have advertised Animal Crossing, but what anyone of any age may have stumbled across could have been a live shower show, complete with moaning, a reading of her wolf-related pornography featuring herself as the main character, or a more explicit offering where she would lotion her body or bounce suggestively on an exercise ball with the goal of showing as much skin as possible. Often, these streams would end with masturbation and an equally crass sign-off.
Thank you for coming on my face.
Have you ever sent an unsolicited nude of yourself to someone else?
Yes, in my lifetime, yes, I have.
Okay. And why would you do that?
I get a lot of attention from being a beautiful girl, so I understand that it's not right, but I always had positive responses and everything. I think they've always sent things back, or water emojis, sexted with me, stuff like that.
There were also a growing number of YouTubers and community members complaining that Jessi was sending unsolicited nudes, and when asked to stop, she would ignore their pleas.
Yeah. You just have to tell me to stop, and then I will. Sometimes it's a little bit hard for me because you had me going at first. Then he told me that he has a girlfriend and he would appreciate if I stopped, tried to communicate with him like that. And I didn't really handle that well. And that's the truth. I did send him one more photo, and then he told me again. And from there I stopped, and I was kind of embarrassed that I did that again.
When pressed to explain her actions, Jessi would come up with an excuse: an assault when she was younger.
And you have made allegations in the past that you yourself have been a victim or survivor of predatory behavior. Tell me about that.
Now, depending on who she told and when, her age ranged from 8 to 13 years old in the story. But it wasn't just the age that would change.
Yeah, that's actually why I started watching To Catch a Predator, because I really like stings and everything, catching people that were just like this person who catfished me.
And what happened in the instance where this person catfished you?
Jessi told the story on various live streams several times in the months leading up to this interview. And while the major beats remained largely unchanged, there were massive variations.
I was on MySpace and they pretended to be like an emo scene kid. So we talked for a couple weeks and then he asked if I wanted to, well, he didn't ask, he said, let's meet in person. Like I had very strict parents, so I wasn't allowed to go out past 7 o'clock at night and everything. So it was kind of like I snuck out. So that was on me. I did sneak out.
And what happened in this incident?
Well, when I was in the car, I thought that I was drinking a Monster and it was a Four Loko, and Monsters always tasted really bad for me. So, but since it was late at night and I was really tired, I wanted to be awake and just like have fun. I wasn't going there to hook up because first of all, I was a virgin. I was a girl. I didn't know. And I was just excited to be like with someone from MySpace and everything. And they gave me a Monster. I mean, they gave me what I thought was a Monster, but what I know now is a Four Loko. And of course, the next day I was hungover, never drank before. So I didn't know what was actually going on, kind of thing. But, you know, years later, having drinking experiences, I was like, I drank a Four Loko. That's what it was. So I ended up being intoxicated by the time we got to the house because it was about a 15-20 minute drive, I would say. And
Jessi was adamant she was abducted by a much older man who posed as an 18-year-old on MySpace. The man picked her up and she was assaulted and kept overnight. Her parents never called the police or looked for their 8 to 13-year-old missing daughter. The next day, Jessi was dropped off in the ghetto, her words. Jessi's parents picked her up and the police were never called.
And you were gone all this time and they didn't figure it out? They didn't call police? They weren't worried?
the next morning they were worried, and I lied. I said that I was at a friend's house. They were asking me who, and I didn't want to divulge the details or anything. Like I just wanted to like stay in my room and everything. And they were like, what's going, because I was always a generally bubbly girl, and always just always had a smile on my face. They called me Jessi Sunshine. And then I just blurted out what happened. And then from there they were crying, and they were calling the whole family, telling them what happened. And I was like, please don't call the police. And like my uncle spoke to people, and he spoke to a cop and everything to find more information. And I didn't want a police report. I didn't want testing done. I was too traumatized. I really did not want to talk about it as much as I could. And my parents put me in therapy. So yeah, I did not want the police involved, even though they were informed. It was up to me to want to do something, and I said I really didn't want to do it. Also because
So you told your parents?
Yes.
And did they tell the police?
No. So what it is my like my dad told my uncle, and my uncle works in a jail. He for AA meetings and everything. So he has connections with law enforcement, and he asked them what they should do. And
so it never officially got reported to police, but you told your parents, who told your uncle, who works at a jail, who
yeah, I didn't tell him, but my
something
dad told him. Yeah.
Got it. And whatever happened to this guy who allegedly assaulted you?
Just days later, Jessi's kidnapper was surrounded by police in the woods, and after a tense standoff, he admitted to kidnapping and assaulting many women before taking his own life.
I heard rumors of standoff and all these crazy things. From there, I didn't
standoff.
When
you say standoff, what do you mean? What happened?
Like what I was told is that he confessed to assaulting multiple women, and then he shot himself in Shirley's woods. There's like a specific location that people, like, we grow up with, you and know where it is, but
right. But the story you've told in the past is that he was cornered by police for this incident and others, and that he confessed to this incident and others, and then killed himself in front of police in the woods. But that's not what happened, right? He
right. And I want that clarified, because I said that on my channel, and that was incorrect.
2018.
Strange that a crime with such salacious details didn't make national news, considering her attacker was the brother of who she called a famous YouTuber. Jessi told that story time and time again, but it wasn't until early August 2022 that she would put a name to her alleged abuser.
By Corey, whom do you mean by Corey?
And this is when it would all fall apart for Jessi.
Corey Lush, which is Matthew Lush's brother.
Right. Matthew being a famous YouTube content creator, and Corey having been very popular on MySpace and some other areas of the internet.
Her attacker, the much older man who had posed as an 18-year-old and kidnapped and took advantage of Jessi, was the brother of YouTuber Matthew Lush.
Alright, so I told myself I would never, ever, 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 ever do this again, but you know what? Here we are!
There were a few problems with this story. Chief amongst them was Corey's age.
In how did you know that this was Corey, and how old was Corey at the time, allegedly?
I believe he was, because I remember him laughing and saying like, oh, I'm 28 or whatever, right? And he was, I don't know for sure because he lied, and other girls in my school were telling me that he's lied to other girls and did similar things to girls older than me. So with alcohol though, but I didn't know, like I didn't willingly drink alcohol because I really didn't know. I thought I was drinking a Monster to stay awake and just hang out and kind of like, have fun. Because I didn't even know what sex was or anything like that.
Born in 1991, he was 16 in 2007, and not a much older man posing as an 18-year-old online. In her original story, her kidnapper was alone, but in this new version, she was picked up in a white van by his friends, plied with alcohol, and then shuttled to a home where Corey was waiting. Again, Corey would have been 16 years old at this time, but in Jessi's new story, he had a gang of assistants who would both pick up and drop off females he met on MySpace.
I did sneak out to meet this person, but end up being several guys, which were his roommates, Corey's roommates, and they picked me up in a white van, and they brought me to the house in Shirley. And from there, they walked me to the door, and then they were saying like, oh, we're gonna go. You guys have fun. And from there, that is when I was like, oh, where is whatever his name was on MySpace, which I don't recall. But he said, oh, that's me. I was using a fake catfish profile. And well, he didn't say catfish. I was using a fake profile. So, yeah, he said he was bragging about his brother before it happened and everything. And yeah, and he knew because I was following him on MySpace, and it was kind of just like public knowledge. So he took advantage of that.
What year did this happen? What year did?
I don't remember. I do remember it was 7th grade. I might have said that I was 12, 13, but I don't do math correctly, and I will say that 100% was 7th grade, and it was right before high school. I mean, I was after like the whole discussion and kind of just making fun of how like I was kind of stupid for falling for the trick and everything. He took me into the bedroom, like he actually like physically carried me into the bedroom. I do remember like exactly how the house was set up. I remember everything about the house. There was like a kitchen. It was very small. There was a kitchen, and then there was a hallway, and next to the room was the bathroom. And I was on the bed, and he held me down from I was on my stomach.
And you're saying that he assaulted you sexually?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for it must have been like 2 hours, I would say, because just from like the timing and everything.
What I would want to know is, why would Corey brag that he was the brother of Matthew Lush prior to assaulting her? But we can't ask him for any of those details, because sadly, there is one part of Jessi's story that can be confirmed. Corey Lush passed away. Not in the woods after a dramatic standoff with police in 2007, but 11 years later, in 2018, when he took his own life. There were no police, no dramatic admissions of kidnapping and assault, nothing but a man's name being dragged through the mud after he is no longer here to defend himself.
My little brother passed a week ago. He felt like he was unloved. That wasn't true.
Her excuses wore thin, and as Chris dug deeper into Jessi's tale, more questions would arise.
Why did you tell the other story earlier?
Because I think that there was something that happened with my brain that's more of trauma related, that I've done more research on, that it happens. It's actually it happens more significantly for people who are dealing with things that are related to like a famous person, where they block out things and then they're told different things happened, and then in their mind it becomes their reality. It's a very common thing, and it's very unfortunate, because that that's just, I really thought that, and I said that to people, and but now I have to clarify that that's not what actually happened, and work on that.
For instance, who would stay online friends with their alleged attacker years after the alleged assault?
After this allegation against Corey Lush, did you stay in contact with him?
Oh no, I was traumatized. That's the last thing I would want to do.
But you were still friends on MySpace in 2010.
I don't know. I can't.
Well,
I can't
I'm
think
telling
that
you
far.
that we found that. So if the
Okay, so
allegation
yeah,
was
I
in
don't know.
2006,
Maybe I was
why are
trying
you still
to
friends with
pretend
him
it
in
didn't happen.
2010?
Yeah, I don't know. This happened a long time ago. I mean, I might have some things kind of different than how I thought it happened.
Jessi had no answer either. To rule out the unlikely possibility that Corey was an underage mastermind with a white van and a crew of underlings ready to do his bidding, I asked his brother Matthew. He was understandably shocked to hear the accusations being made against Corey, and he confirmed two things. One, Corey lived with his mom in 2007 and was a sophomore in high school. Two, not only did he not have a white van in 2007, he didn't even have a bike, as it had been stolen sometime earlier.
Do you think it was fair to tell the story originally the way you did, and now to back off it? I mean, the allegations are serious, Jessi.
Right.
What you're saying is
But
that
that's what I
this
thought.
fellow, now dead from suicide,
Mhm.
sexually assaulted you, and there's no evidence. And again, I take this very seriously because sexual assault is a very serious allegation. I
Yeah.
spend a lot of my time professionally going after predators who try to do this. It's a large
Right.
commitment ethically and journalistically on my part.
Mhm.
And so I want to ask you this with all the appropriate sensitivity, but nothing seems to add up here in this case.
Seeing huge holes in her story, Chris would give Jessi a chance to retract her statements.
There's a lack of evidence there. And when you take a look at it in the big picture, Jessi,
Mhm.
when you look at allegations that you've sent unsolicited nude photos of yourself to people, that you have made false
Yeah.
claims
People
against
that were in
other
my
people.
NSFW Discord.
I'm just saying, let me get to it, and then I'll give you a chance to respond to it. There have been allegations on your part, false, of sexual harassment, sexual assault. You falsely accused content creators of being predators and pedophiles. All it would seem to enhance your presence on social media. And how do you answer those allegations, those claims?
I haven't accused anyone of anything that isn't true.
But you offer no, when you make these allegations, which are horrific for all the reasons we know, you don't offer any proof. You say these things, and then
I can't show proof of what happened to me.
Well, then, I'm not talking about you in this particular incident. I'm talking about the allegations that you have made against other people about being pedophiles and predators and committing crimes like sexual harassment and sexual assault. When it appears that you, by sending unsolicited nudes, would be the one carrying out some sort of harassment here, including a nude that was sent to a minor.
Okay, so we can get into that. Absolutely. He was a sock account. How would I know that of his age?
Instead, she doubled down and became increasingly aggressive, attacking Chris, myself, and other community members that she had an axe to grind.
If somebody is lying about being a victim or survivor to get attention for whatever reason,
that wouldn't make any sense. Why would someone do that?
It takes away, well, because they want attention, but it takes away
Why would
real
that, Chris,
attention.
no,
Let me
no
finish.
No woman wants attention from a sexual assault or lying about a sexual assault. No woman. That is horrific. That's the worst thing that a human being could go through. And for you to say that didn't happen to me and I'm just making it up
I'm just saying that there's a lack of evidence there. Some of the story doesn't make sense.
Okay, well,
and this let me finish. And this would be a good time for you to come clean on this. These are very serious allegations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm happy to take a polygraph test.
And you've made them against somebody who's dead. You've sent unsolicited nudes to people. You've made false allegations. And according to at least one member of the TCAP community, you tried to extort money. Isn't it time to stop this? Isn't it time to stop trying to steal attention from real victims?
No, because this actually happened to me. So, that's why everyone in my life knows about this, and they think that you're a disgusting human being. You can't handle the truth. You can't dig into facts. You're a horrible journalist. You know for a fact that you're not digging into anything.
This is your chance to tell the truth.
Yes, and I'll take a polygraph test about everything because I know my truth, and I know that I was raped when I was that young, and I knew that I wanted to hide it most of my life, and I didn't talk about it, and I would never make up something like that, especially since that person is scarred into my freaking memory for the rest of my life, and someone touches me a certain way, I think of his freaking face in my freaking head. So,
with multiple chances to apologize for her actions and to anyone she hurt, falsely accused, doxxed, or more, she chose to single out only a few people while still playing the victim.
All right. There's nothing else you want to do to clarify any of the allegations that you've made or anything like that?
I want to say that, I do apologize that I made, we're uncomfortable. I think that it's almost like a crazy ex-girlfriend thing where you start with me and then I can't handle when you want to stop. And that's not appropriate. I want to apologize to Joey, even though I did privately, but I do want to apologize to him.
Joey TCAP.
Yeah, because Wes and I were kind of doing like this show kind of thing, and that was not appropriate. I shouldn't be saying things, definitely not appropriate.
And did you ask him for $50,000?
Yes, Wes told me to.
Just a clarification. Wes didn't tell me to make accusations against people.
It was my doing, and I shouldn't have done that. Tit for tat is not okay. Why am I trying to get back at people for lying about me?
So from here on out, no accusations.
For more money.
That is absolutely not true. Why do you try to?
No, it is true. It is true, Chris Hansen, and I would love a polygraph test if you're not gonna,
At this point, the interview was getting out of hand, and Chris was ready to pull the plug.
And why would you, in that interview just a moment ago, in this interview, make a false allegation against me?
Wait, what was false?
Why would you say
me?
something that is just so ridiculous? It's embarrassing. Not to me.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about what you just tried to do to turn the tables here and make an allegation against
me.
No. It's false.
No, everyone is on my side in my real life because they know exactly what happened to me.
I think we're done. We're done here. If you want to apologize to anybody else, now's the time to do it.
But, like the crazy ex-girlfriend she claims to emulate.
All right, why don't you go take a polygraph and let us know how that works out.
Oh, anything else I need the money for it.
Jessi, anything else you want to say?
No, I think that you have more questions for me because I know that you have a lot of trolls and people coming into your ear. And, this is very disturbing that, you don't believe.
I think here's what's disturbing. Somebody who makes false allegations to take attention away from real victims. And I've spent an entire career helping real victims. So I'm not going to give you a platform to do that. So Jessi, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it. One more chance to apologize to anybody else.
You're not going because I was fucking raped. Why would I fucking make that up? You're listening to AZ and Theo.
Jessi was not willing to respect clearly set boundaries and had to be removed from the interview.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. I appreciate it very much. We'll be in touch.
No, I'm not done.
Well, you'll be done when we're done.
That was insane.
Yeah, I mean, and neither one of you, I should point out, just to make it very clear, is involved in the Jessi case, but based upon your review, upon our request, you know, as lawyers with experience in this field, has she committed some sort of a crime here potentially?
Based on what I'm hearing and seeing, I would say yes.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's extortion, potentially there's racketeering. I wonder if she's acting alone or if she's acting with others. There could be aiding and abetting. Take this stuff seriously. Don't wait until, you know, it goes viral. If somebody is publishing content about you that is false, it's leading to something that you know could get bigger, you need to act immediately.
There was something Jessi kept saying in an attempt to take a dig at Hansen and myself in this investigation of her that kept replaying in my head.
That's not right. You have to be an actual journalist and dig into actual information and be ethical.
I decided to take her advice, and we found one more thing Coco and Jessi have in common: time behind bars. While we know Coco was arrested for fraud in February 2022, Jessi spent time locked up in 2018, which, while she has mentioned on her channel before, it wasn't for the reason she wants you to believe.
Everyone knows that I've been falsely arrested. And then the funny thing is that they found marijuana, like a copious amounts of marijuana.
To make a long story short, Jessi has often claimed she was arrested on a marijuana-related charge while living in Florida. The amount of marijuana she allegedly had would change each time, but in each version of the story, she was railroaded by a system looking for a scapegoat.
Like when I had my marijuana case, it was only $500 in marijuana, so it was a couple ounces. It was like a pound, and it was like it was less than a pound actually. But why is that? I got no bail.
So yeah, I was found with a little bit under 2 pounds of weed, and they were saying that I had intent to sell.
And I said, I said to the judge, I was like, how am I not getting bail? I have no priors and no violent history or anything like that.
With an assist from AZ, a few phone calls, the work of Skip Tracer, and a Media Freedom of Information Act request, we found something eye-opening.
You don't have my mugshot. 1000% impossible. So, yeah, I know that's a lie. Because my mugshot never came into record, and I made sure of that.
I wouldn't count on that. On May 20th, 2018, Jessi was arrested in Largo, Florida. Her crime? Domestic violence against her partner. According to the 911 transcript, it was a neighbor who called to report the incident, and they initially feared for Jessi's safety. 20 minutes after police arrived, Jessi would be in handcuffs, her partner admitting it was hardly the first time Jessi had put her hands on him. In the victim's own words, the couple was arguing over narcotics, and Jessi didn't feel she was getting her fair share. Before he knew it, the two were in a scuffle, with Jessi leaving visible marks on his body. She was released on her own recognizance the next day, only to be rearrested at the Pinellas County Courthouse on August 1st, 2018 on an outstanding warrant related to that May arrest. The state of Florida required that Jessi undergo a psychological evaluation to gauge her mental competency as a defendant. This is not standard in Florida or Pinellas County, but at any rate, Jessi was deemed mentally competent to face justice for her crimes.
I was only in jail for 30 days, and that was why while I was waiting to be seen in court.
In reality, she was jailed a little over 2 weeks before being released. This grin in her mugshot immediately prior to leaving jail is in stark contrast to the teary-eyed Jessi just months earlier. It started to make more sense. How could Jessi possibly respect digital boundaries when she has a documented history of invading physical boundaries in real life? None of this was said to embarrass or shame Jessi, but as a warning to herself as well as others. Coco Berthman didn't start off scamming thousands of dollars or sharing her fictional tale of trafficking on a global stage. She started small. She found families who would take her in. She made moves, made connections, and negatively impacted one life after another. This is the road Jessi could be headed down, and people should be aware. Even her once loyal and supportive friends can agree that Jessi's actions are nothing short of predatory.
What am I supposed to say to defend her? Because she wants me to like stick up for her now. Like, look, Jessi, I will stick up for you when you're right, and I will condemn you when you're wrong.
And that's all you can do.
I have to go by if what you say is true, that she was sending unsolicited pictures to people after they especially said stop. That is unwanted, unwelcome sexual harassment behavior.
Race, besides criminal liability here, what's the civil liability? What does somebody do who's targeted by a fake victim?
Yeah, well, the number one thing that we're going to look at is the reputational harm, right? So libel, slander, and depending on the jurisdiction, most likely this type of conduct is defamation per se. So there's a presumption that if you accuse me of kidnapping or rape, or sexual assault, unwanted touching, that it's most likely going to be defamation per se. And in most jurisdictions, we're going to just presume that that is such a nasty allegation that it's harmed you in some capacity. And then we're going to look at what the actual fallouts were, right?
Did she learn her lesson after interviewing with Chris Hansen and make an effort to change her ways? Not at all. Just 2 weeks after this interview, Jessi would go on a live stream and accuse me of being a pedophile and make videos claiming I had Down syndrome and autism. She would follow that up just days later by doxing my phone number in a YouTube video. Like I said earlier, some people insist on learning the hard way, and Jessi seems content to live in a delusion where she did nothing wrong. One where she is always the victim and where it is fine to make up lies about anyone, anywhere, at any time, whenever she feels attacked, insecure, or just plain bored.
It's disgusting. It really is. I mean, it's a criminal mind at play from what I've seen.
Lynn Packer and Renata Ruff were warning the public about Coco Berthman since as far back as 2018. But it took the work of someone who once took Coco into her home to finally put an end to her years-long grift. It shouldn't have to go that far. And when it comes to Jessi, people like Green Frog, Tebow Baggins, Julie Virgo, AZ, and more have worked to warn others about this growing menace before it's too late, before she has a chance to cause untold damage to a community or cause she claims to hold dear. These women are both dangerous. They are serial victims who look for their next mark the way any predator does, studying weaknesses while using their skills and cunning to victimize, cannibalize, and dispose of their prey once they have extracted everything they could. They represent an alarming trend that seems to grow with each new social media platform. For attention, for money, or both. And from celebrities like Jussie Smollett to runaway mom Sherry Papini to my own personal experiences with Muse Talks, now known as The Shift, King Midas, Queen of Spade, and others, this plague of false victimhood continues to spread its sociopathic hand across the globe.
I'm a victim. There, I said it. Are you happy?
With no signs of slowing down.
All she does is lie. Like, I love to expose people too, but it's not fun when they just lie and make things up to level the playing field. Like, anybody, this is another thing. Anybody can turn on a camera and act like an animal like she does. Anybody can turn on a camera and lie. You know what I mean? It requires zero talent to do what she's doing right now. Like, so it just really annoys me. Like,
what's shocking about many of these false victims is that they really think they can get away with this. And I'm unsure as to what motivates them, whether it's an attention-grabbing thing, whether they've convinced themselves in some way that they really are victims. But I can tell you this, it damages the credibility in the cases on behalf of real victims across the country. And it has the potential of swinging too far the other way and making law enforcement and journalists, I suppose, overly suspicious when a victim does bring their story forward. And that's not a good thing for anyone involved. We'll see what happens with Jessi. I doubt that she's going to get that polygraph and get back to me. As far as Coco Berthman, I'm going to still keep trying to reach out to her. She did get back to me a few months ago, talking about the health scare scam and explaining that it was just an idea from a friend of hers and it got out of control. But now she's facing criminal charges. We'll keep an eye on that as well. We'll see you next time on Have a Seat with Chris Hansen. I want to thank Wes Most as always. I'll be watching and listening.